and welcome to this episode of the Monday Minute. My name is Ken Freeman, and here is what I have for you this week. As you know, one of the greatest problems facing us as pregnancy resource centers is that many of our clients are being forced to have that abortion. Well, I had the opportunity to interview Mr. Allan Parker of the Texas Justice Foundation. You may know of them through Operation Outcry, is a foundation that seeks to end legalized abortion through the gathering of legal, admissible testimonies of men and women who have been harmed by abortion. Well, with me on the Monday Minute hotline is Mr. Allan Parker. Tell us more about the Center Against Forced Abortion.
Forced Abortions is a project of the Justice Foundation to help women in the situation where they're being forced to have an abortion. And we want to get the word out all across America that no one can legally force you to have an abortion against your will, no matter how old you are or how young you are.
Well, how frequent is the problem of forced abortion?
I have spoken to thousands of crisis pregnancy centers across the nation, and they uniformly indicate that the problem of forced abortions is something they deal with all the time. In addition, we get calls every week from girls who are being forced to have an abortion. The most common are teenage girls who are being forced by their parents to have an abortion, and the second most common is an adult woman who's being forced by a boyfriend to have an abortion.
What can people do if they know someone is being forced to have an abortion?
The most important thing is to remember to say this to them. No one can legally force you to have an abortion against your will. Now, everyone needs to know that, and it's not known, particularly for, say, teenagers who are living at home. They may think their parents can make them have an abortion, but they cannot. Under the law, it's the woman's choice, no matter how young she is. Now, we think all abortions should be illegal, and no one should have the choice, but clearly no one should be forced to have an abortion, and that is the law. You can also go to our website and get our Dear Parent letter that can help notify the parents that they can't force their child to have an abortion.
What is the Dear Parent letter?
All right, the Dear Parent letter is available on our website at operationoutcry.org and at thejusticefoundation.org. And it's a letter that says, Dear Parent or other concerned person. So it also would include a boyfriend or anyone pressuring the girl. But it says, you may not legally force your child or your partner to have an abortion. Because if you do, you can be guilty of fetal homicide. Fetal homicide is killing a child in the womb without the mother's permission. Unfortunately, if the mother wants the child killed, she can go to an abortionist and give permission, and it's not considered murder. But anybody else who kills that baby in the womb, whether it's a boyfriend or the husband or a relative or even a stranger, it's fetal homicide. It's child murder. The parents could also be guilty of kidnapping or assault. There were some, if you put a girl in a car against her will and take her to an abortion clinic, that's kidnapping. That's an assault. And if you threaten her or beat her up, that can be an assault. And parents cannot say, I'm going to kick you out of my house if you don't have this abortion, because every parent still has the duty to care for their minor child, even if she's pregnant. That legal duty does not cease unless she is fully emancipated or married. Then it's over. But being pregnant doesn't mean you're emancipated, and it doesn't mean you're married, and you still get to live at home. Or the parents could choose to place their daughter in a maternity home or something like that where she can get care, but they can't kick her out on the streets. The letter also tells them you can't say, I'm going to beat you within an inch of your life. You can't say, I'm your parent, you're doing what I tell you to do. Or you can't punish them. I'm taking away your cell phone and grounding you for the rest of the year unless you have this abortion. Even in America, where abortion is legal, it's supposed to be the informed, voluntary decision of the woman. If it's not voluntary, it's either a criminal or civil tort, or perhaps both.
And where can we get this information?
The best place to get the information is our general website, www.thejusticefoundation.org. Thejusticefoundation.org. That has a training audio on how to use it. It has the letters itself. There's some other tools for the forced abortion situation, and that's the best. You can also go to our operationoutcry.org, which is where we're collecting testimonies of women who've had abortions, many of whom have been forced to have abortions, and sometimes getting the testimonies of women And sharing that with the person who's forcing the abortion can get them to change their mind also. Because no parent wants their child to be pregnant before they're married, but they need to know how to deal with that situation in a loving way, including adoption if the girl is not old enough to take care of a child, without killing the child and violating the law.
Are forced abortions occurring at Planned Parenthood facilities? And do you think Planned Parenthood should be defunded?
Abortions are being performed at Planned Parenthood facilities across the nation that are the result of coercion, undue pressure, or force. First of all, we say that because Planned Parenthood is the largest provider of abortions in America, so they're probably seeing the largest number of these. Second, we have women who testify that they were the victim of forced abortions at Planned Parenthood facilities. Now, in Planned Parenthood's defense, sometimes they may not know because the coercion, the beatdown, has occurred outside their facility, and a girl or a woman comes in and just signs the forms and doesn't say anything. But on the other hand, many times they're crying, many times they're being dragged into the facility, and there is evidence that Planned Parenthood should know that a forced abortion is occurring. And we've had to call the police from girls being dragged into abortion clinics by somebody who wanted them to get an abortion against their will. Recently, we were able to save a young lady and her baby in Austin, Texas, in such a situation. But the other thing that if a young woman is hearing this, as long as she keeps saying to the abortionist, I don't want this abortion, I don't consent, even if she's dragged there and taken in, most abortionists will not perform an abortion if the girl is saying she doesn't consent, because the law is so clear. She should not be forced to have an abortion. And Planned Parenthood should be defunded because of many, many forced abortions that are occurring. I spoke with another gentleman this morning who has hundreds of cases documented where women have actually been violently threatened or hurt or into either having abortions or hurt because they didn't have the abortions. And because it's legal and easily available, men think they can make the woman get an abortion, and that's completely wrong.
And finally, sir, what would you like to say to every center director listening?
For the center director of a crisis pregnancy center, we've had many, many great reports of babies and women saved by using the Dear Parent letter and the other tools of our Center Against Forced Abortion. We have a 1-hour training audio available on our website, and many centers are now making that part of the mandatory training for volunteers because this issue comes up all the time. You need to know the legal rights. It's a simple, easy-to-use tool, and there's a Dear Client letter you can give to the girl. There's the Dear Parent letter for her parents, and there's a letter to the abortionist that the girl can sign. Then the center sends it out to all of the abortionists in the area saying, I'm being forced to have an abortion. I don't want it. And that often prevents abortions from occurring also. So the training about all those documents is on our website at thejusticefoundation.org under the Center Against Forced Abortion.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to his website. I want you to download the notes that I give you right here on our webpage, and I want you to help us do all we can to bring more awareness to this thing called forced abortion. Thanks for listening to today's Monday Minute. Tell a friend about us, and remember, keep up the good work you're doing. You are making a difference, and the other side just can't stand it.